my journey to advertising, it was an interesting journey. When I was in university here, USIU, I was actually studying a Bachelor of Arts in International Relations. But my passion at that time, when in campus, was acting. While acting with the Phoenix Players, so I started getting into auditions, got into a few ads and stuff like that. And then I was like, that's when the passion developed. But apart from that, my dad was in marketing, in BAT, which was a very heavy advertiser back in the day. So I'd follow him, you know, when he goes, like, you know, when they go on shoots and that sort of stuff. So something started developing from there, and I'd hear his conversations on ads and that sort of stuff. So combining those two together, then the passion started building. After campus, I had that thing of like, okay, what am I going to do? So there's that time, and I was like, okay, maybe let me try advertising. So my father asked me, you're interested in advertising? I said, yeah. So I said, what side of advertising do you want to do? There's client service, there's creative. I told him creative. He was so like pissed. He's like, what? You know, that was his image of creatives. I don't know why. But anyway, so I said, fine, maybe I'll try and open for you a few doors, but I won't. I'll give you a number. The first place I went to was it Century? I think those days there was David Oliwa, Victor Mabachi and stuff like that. This was back in the day. Eh? So I had dreads, torn jeans, kila kitu. So I talked to Victor Mabachi. He's like, okay, how can I help you? I want to be advertising. What do you want to be? So now I got confused. That's when I told the guy client service. So he looked at me. He's like, oh, okay. But I could tell, you know, don't worry, we'll call you back. I could tell by the time I walked out of that place, there's no way I would get into that. So the next time I decided, wait. I found out Scanad. These guys seem to be the guys who, you know, are the main agency in this place. So I go to Scanad and I'm here to see who Bharat. By this time, I've shaved my dreads. I'm wearing a suit. I think I waited in reception for 2 weeks. You know, he's kept on telling, there's a guy to see you. There's a guy to see. I kept on going every day. So for about 2 weeks, 1.5 weeks, one day, and I could see the guy passing in. I waited. So it's like, I think it was one of those things of how badly do you want it. So I go and see him, and he says, okay, I'll give you a project. You do for me like 3 ads or sometime like this, and you can tell how long ago it on a photocopier machine. And then he says, and by the way, the next time you come here, come dressed as a creative. And I'm like, Jesus, I've just shaved dreads that took me like 5 years to grow. And this guy, anyway, fine, wrote the ads and got into Scanad. He came and introduced me as a trainee Swahili copywriter. So I was like, really? The creative director at that time was not in the country. That was Andrew White. He was operating from Australia. It was about 97 or 98. So that's how he worked and just, you know, moved up the ropes. Actually now became junior copywriter in Scanad. I think I lasted there I was there 9 months. I saw opportunity that was advertised those days in the papers by Ogilvy. So I jumped into Ogilvy, which was a fantastic training ground. You know, they were so structured in terms of the Ogilvy training. If you performed, I think within 6 months, I was in Johannesburg, you know, the Ogilvy training there. Some other guys used to go to England. That's where I met Arnold Mwashumbe, Eric Ndavi, also checked into Ogilvy. The creative director at the time was a guy called Paul Sullivan. So Ogilvy, some of the clients we handled at the time, there was Pepsi. There was a lot of GSK. GSK is where now I actually found a footing as in, oh, okay, you mean things can turn out like this here. There was also East African Industries. There was another project for something called Coldrex. Some really crazy ad on a guy trying different remedies. I remember even when we were shooting it was so simple. Some guy, you know, you had to throw a live chicken across, you know, some really crazy stuff using Steve Muturi, the comedian from the time. It took their sales to another level. So that's when, you know, things started gelling, because in fact, even that time, Evans Kidero was the head of GSK. It's like, who are these guys? I'd like to meet them. And I remember something that Evans Kidero told me, smart guys, you guys have not just impressed me because of the sales that this thing has taken, but now I'm starting to see homegrown creatives doing the things they're doing. So keep on doing, you know, what you guys are doing. And you know, that appreciation, we're like, okay, we're doing things here. So I stayed in Ogilvy for about 3 years. There was an opportunity that happened again in Scanad. When we crossed over back to Scanad, it was interesting. I think Andrew White was on another level. It was kind of a thing like when you thought you were quite, you know, somebody in creative in another agency, Like by the time you go to Scanad, the level of creative was so high that you find like, oh my goodness, compared to this guy, I feel like a junior. Because you've come from another place, but he'd tell you, you've written a headline, yeah, give me 50 headlines. What do you mean? 50 headlines of the same thing until he sees that he's drilling the most, out of you. What Scanad started doing at that time were also integrating guys. So it's like the Australian guy working with the Kenyan guy, the South African guy working with the Kenyan guy. So there was an interesting balance. A guy from India working with the Kenyan. So teams were kind of been split into that. So international, local flavor, and it just blends into something. So that's something I think they started trying out quite well. What Andrew White was trying to define at that time was start shifting things in a certain way. And these things of, I think where the guys who started bringing back these things of Tusker, for instance, the Bambua Tafrija, which to me was a fantastic thing because at that time, everyone changed and started talking to Unenda Kubambua, that kind of thing. So it became part of the lingo. In Scanad for Fanta, there was a radio ad for Fanta, which was Fanta Welcome to the World. This one is swept a lot of awards in the lorries in South Africa. On the local advertising scene, there were things that we won in the APA. There was Tusker, which was Tusker Dialer Can, which was now the first delivery services. So it was a cool thing we did with Arnold. One Tusker can here, another Tusker can, and a string here. Like how guys used to talk like this. So Dialer Tusker. Then I think Scanad bought Macan at the time. So then was shifted to Macan. I stayed in Macan for some time, but I got out of my Macan not very gracefully. I think that time it was, moving too fast, too soon. So I dropped out of there. But then after some time, I went and joined Access Leo Burnett. From Access Leo Burnett, I stayed there for about a year, moved back to, was now a Scanad. I just got a Safaricom account, which was now at Red Sky. So jumped back to Red Sky, stayed in Red Sky for a bit, again, dropped out of Red Sky. That's when I went to Nation Media Group. I was heading the radio creative at Nation Media Group for about 2 years. Left Nation Media Group and went back to Scanad. And that's been the journey of around 18 years, something like that.